Hello, hello, and welcome to episode 67 of the FlipScreen Games podcast, a weekly video game podcast where two best buds from usually different nations, but this week the same nation, come together to discuss the wide, wide world of video games. There's no Pete this week. He's too busy eating some turkey while we record this. We're recording this on Thanksgiving, so happy Thanksgiving to everyone from America. But I am joined by Mr. Max Wright.
Hello, hello. Hopefully Pete's going to be giving thanks to us for giving him the day off.
He really should be giving thanks to us for letting him go and eat all that turkey, because we could have demanded that he came here and recorded this podcast.
Right? Well, you know, first it's the honeymoon, then it's Thanksgiving. We're just carrying the whole thing recently.
I'm glad I got to have a day off on Tuesday, to be honest, from Pokemon. I just could not bear to sit there and just listen to all the Pokemon talk like I did when you two were like talking about God of War. So I've had two episodes off in the last couple of weeks because I wasn't on last week's episode either, where you spoke with Sightless Combat. It was a really good episode.
Yes, it was a great episode. Yeah, it was really, really interesting and insightful. Maybe you should try playing some of the big games coming out, Steve.
Yeah, or maybe Pete should play Elden Ring. Like, you know, I've not played God of War, but Pete's not played Elden Ring, so I think I'm winning, right?
Save this for the end of the year.
Well, as it's Thanksgiving, that means yesterday, as of when this lands, was Black Friday, and Xbox seemingly is all out for PlayStation's jugular this year with some insane deals on Xboxes. The Series S in the UK is $189.99. In the US, it's $249.99. But I also saw some other deals around the Series X and the Series S, where if you bought them through the Instagram shop and used like a coupon code, you could get like the Series X for like $399, like almost $100 off.
It's interesting to be seeing discounts on the Series X, considering it's sort of maybe not quite as sought after, but it is one of those ones where it comes in stock and it goes pretty quickly. So it's interesting to see that now after the 2 years we're finally getting some discounts on them.
Yeah, which is completely counter to what we've had from PlayStation this year. Obviously, we've had a price increase.
Oh yeah,
no discount, anything really that I've seen from them first party on the PlayStation 5 side of things. We spoke on this week's Steam Deck podcast about a bunch of their games being in the Steam sale. So if you're interested in playing some of the games like Horizon Zero Dawn, Spider-Man Remastered, and Days Gone, they're all on sale.
God of War? Why are you leaving God of War?
Yeah, God of War's on there as well.
What is it with you?
It completely slipped my mind. It's not a game I've played. I've played all the other ones, so I'm just like, sure. I'm really interested in what you think as well, because at the moment, Xbox is really looking like they've got the best deal on the market. You look at the Nintendo side of things, we've got yet again the same bundle that we've had since 2018 rolled out. We've got the Nintendo Switch with the Mario Kart, and they've chucked in the Switch Online this time around.
Yeah, that's the thing that we're, you know, because we're in a new generation, and the last few years Nintendo have, well, pretty much since the launch of the Switch, really, Nintendo have used Black Friday and the general holiday period to really capitalize. You know, generally you see like a 10 million sales bump every time, and that didn't go away the last couple of years because there were no PlayStations. It was very rare to get them. Similar with the Xbox, you know, not many massive price jumps. They were price drops, and they were quite hard to get. Whereas now it's sort of more of a level playing field. You know, the Switch is a bit older. We're seeing PlayStation is still, you know, hard to get, and they're probably not going to take any money off. Like you said, they did a price increase earlier in the year. But yeah, it seems like Xbox is perfectly primed now to come in with a cheaper Series X, you know, the first major discount on the Series X, and the Series S being cheaper than, I guess, if you were to buy, is it 3 or 4? I think it's 4 PlayStation 5 games.
You could get an entire Series X. If you get 2 of them, it's 140 quid. So just one more, and you're like over the threshold. Chuck in, say, like the deal they've got on Game Pass at the moment. I think it's £1 for 3 months if you've never had it. Like, you've got yourself a bargain for Christmas.
Oh yeah,
like absolutely insane deal. If you've not got
it's
an
not
Xbox, that would be my recommendation, especially if it's your second console. Like, if you're not
Mhm.
sure, you've already got a PS5, that's your main console, and you're like, well, I really want to dabble with Game Pass. Series S, 189 quid, $249. Like, that is the way to go.
I feel like this would have been the year for Nintendo to go, right, let's swap out the Switch for the OLED Switch, and maybe even change up the game. You know, maybe it's not Mario Kart, it's something else. I wouldn't know what, but give people a
Splatoon might
reason.
be nice, like one of their games
Sure,
that they did this
perfect.
year.
Yeah, you know, give people a reason to hop in and pick up a new Switch. Maybe they've already owned a Switch, even just to get people who have maybe been on the fence and are waiting for the OLED to go down in price. The OLED has dropped in price. I think it's about £50 off in the UK at the moment, or will be.
Is that an official deal, or is that just retailers doing that deal, though?
I think it's retailers doing that one. Yeah, it's not like an actual Nintendo thing. But I think Nintendo are in a point now where even at the last financial thing. Sorry to talk too much about Nintendo when we're not on the Nintendo podcast, but they said that they were sort of like knocking down their expectations for the Switch this year, just because it's sort of maybe getting a bit older. They've not had some of the major releases that PlayStation have had this year.
Well, I wonder if they were expecting Zelda to come out this year then, and having to push it to next year. They've kind of knocked them, because that just slips into the next financial year.
Yeah, so they probably had to sort of temper expectations there, and maybe it was then too late for them to go, right, let's switch gears and get a new Black Friday offer out, you know. But it could just be that because, you know, the Switch has always, since it came out, dominated Black Friday with a fairly standard and safe bundle. That maybe they're just like, okay, let's just sit back again. We know we're going to do all right. Which again gives Xbox a chance to swoop in, really, doesn't it? So, are you gonna pick up anything Xbox related?
I'm not going to pick up a new console. I have no real need for it. I've got a Series X, and I use the Remote Play pretty frequently on my Steam Deck. So I don't really have any need for it. But I know Pete was thinking of getting one because he wanted a second console to go down in the basement where his studio is.
Must be very nice.
I mean, I've always said to him, like, what is the point? You're sat in front of like a gaming PC. Like, why don't you just like if it's underpowered, why don't you just buy another graphics card and swap it out?
Yeah. Well, graphics card for £500 or Series S for 180. You know, what's
That's true. That is
where
true.
do you want to level it up? Which is the sort of the reason why this deal is probably going to dominate, because it is just like, oh well, it's only £180 to maybe you're one of the, you know, majority of people who've never tried an Xbox or have, you know, aren't in the Game Pass ecosystem, but you're like, well, you know, that's quite cheap for me to get into it and then also try a bunch of these games out. A lot of the stuff that is on Game Pass and PlayStation doesn't have, not that there's a ton of it, but the stuff that is there might be interesting enough that for that low price, that might be the clincher, you know, something that low. It's about £60 off, which is quite a hefty reduction, really.
I mean, there's a lot of stuff on Game Pass that's not over on the PlayStation side of things. Like, if you just want to play the Persona games, right? They're all coming to Game Pass over the next course of the next year. You can play Persona 5, 3, and 4 as they come out. And there's like a whole world of Xbox games. I still think Forza Horizon 5 is one of the best games so far in this generation. And if you're a racing nerd, that's like one of the best games to pick up. Not to mention Forza Motorsport coming next year. There's Starfield. There's a whole bunch of games, and I've played an Xbox exclusive this week, Pentiment, which we may get to in the back half of the show. Having such a good time with that.
It could be that some people who have maybe been waiting on some of these big games that bought PS5 a couple of years ago, Starfield, some of the Bethesda games, you know, Elder Scrolls 6. And now maybe with this Activision deal happening, that people may be like, well, I don't want to miss out on Call of Duty, and for £180 I can move over to the Xbox for cheaper than I ever have been able to before. And sure, it's not going to be the top of the range thing, but maybe they just want to keep...
How many people care about that? Like, I really do think that the majority of people that buy the top end, it's like the kind of person that buys the Pro phone, right? Do you ever really need all those cameras and the... Like, who's using that? Like, no one. We're just taking pictures of our food at Instagram. For Instagram, that's
You're
it.
talking to a man with the Google 6 Pro that wishes he waited 3 months for the 6A. So, yeah, you're right. There are going to be there are going to be people that, or most people, especially the ones that just want to hop in and play Call of Duty every year. There are a large amount of
FIFA.
gamers who will do that. Yeah, right. FIFA is still going to be multi-platform, as far as I know. Is that right? That's not going
FIFA's
anywhere.
multi-platform because that's owned by EA. But
Yeah.
it's one of those games where if your friends are over on the Xbox side of things, because I don't think that supports crossplay. It may do. Then that's kind of where you want to be. And even then, right? If you're on last gen hardware still, like you're still rocking a PS4 or an Xbox One, imagine if you get rocking one from 2013 at this point. That thing's gonna be long in the tooth.
Yeah.
Any kind of upgrade in terms of like loading speeds, or you've got the instant resume, all of that stuff is just like gonna take your gaming experience to the next level. And I really think that is what a lot of people forget about with next gen. It's like it's all about, oh, what do the graphics look good? Is it 4K? Is the frame rates good? It's like, well, yeah, that matters, but so does the experience of actually playing games and loading them up and installing them and it being fast and seamless. And when you want to play a game, you just sit down and you can play it.
In terms of games, there's only really been a few things that make the upgrade worth it. On the PlayStation side, you have like Returnal or Ratchet and Clank if you're into that, and on Xbox, literally everything is on there, right? So there's not been much of an incentive. Oh,
do you know which one it is?
Is it the fly planey one?
It is Flight Simulator.
Yeah, there we go. That's the
exclusive,
one. Yeah. Why couldn't I think of the word simulator? I went fly planey one, whatever. So there's not been a major reason games-wise to want to upgrade, but price could be the clincher for some people.
I think it probably will be, especially when people are looking for a gift for Christmas for people. It's like, well, what do you get someone who's kind of got everything, is already playing their games? Well, this is quite a thoughtful gift. It's relatively reasonably priced. It's about what people would want to spend on a gift, I think.
Yep. Do you think that this deal is going to be the kind of thing that gets people queuing up outside shops? I mean, Black Fridays in the UK is not as big as it is in America. We would do a lot of deals. We have a lot of, generally spread out over the course of a couple of weeks. So there's not that major rush. But I remember in 2012, 2013, I queued up outside, 2013 it must have been, queued up outside game at midnight on Thursday, whatever it was then.
I did the same thing, I think. I think it was 2014. I did it, and I got a PS4.
The Xbox One. I did Xbox One and GTA 5 for a girlfriend at the time, for her Christmas, and the queue was huge. We were queuing like straight out of the shop. You go across the whole of like the pedestrianised area, out near a car park, basically. Do you think that with the PS5 not available as it is, with the Series X being quite quite expensive still, do you think the Series X is going to be the thing to pull it in? Because it's not. We're around the same time, right? 2012, 2013, 2014. Probably a couple of years into the generation at that point, right? So,
yeah,
it wasn't like they were brand new consoles.
Yeah, I feel like it's the games that drew us in back in that time. For me, the game that made me buy the PS4 was Fallout 4, because I really I was a really big fan of Fallout 3, and I wanted to, and New Vegas, and I wanted to play the next one, and that was the first game that was like, oh, this is next gen only. So I ended up getting a PS4. I really think the people that buy the Series S are new to the Xbox. I think if you're in on the Xbox ecosystem, if you're going for the Series X. Like if that's your primary console, you want the best.
Yeah. And you've got the two fridges to go alongside it as well.
Yeah, you've got the two fridges to go alongside it. You've got the Elite controller. You've got like 600 from the Xbox Design Lab. But I do think that deal will get so many people through the door. $249 was already a great deal. It was cheaper than a Nintendo Switch. But $189, it's like, I mean, how much is a Switch Lite? Like, that's got to be in that territory, right?
Yeah, I think I got one at Christmas last year for $200 with Animal Crossing. So
yeah,
I reckon
it's cheaper.
Probably around $180.
Yeah, it's $198. So it's cheaper than a Nintendo Switch Lite, which is just insanity for the power that you get out of that console.
Plus, you get Games Pass, right, which you don't get. Surely there's no disc, and you don't get to take advantage of a lot of deals. You can't just, like if you bought the Series X, you can't go to CEX and just bulk up on old games. but the allure of Game Pass is there, you know, for
Yeah,
someone
you've
coming
got
into the
Game
Xbox.
Pass, and like there's the Black Friday sale that's coming on. With Xbox, you can also buy codes elsewhere, which I know Sony shut down. So you can go to somewhere like a CD Keys or is there any deal.gg and have a look and buy elsewhere if you want to, like from Green Man Gaming or even from Amazon, I think, sell digital download codes. So you've got that flexibility to buy from other markets, which you don't get on the PlayStation side of things.
Mm-hmm.
But Game Pass is the real draw. I think this is going to be a Game Pass machine for a lot
Yeah,
of
that's what I
people.
was about to say. That's how it's been described. Anyone that's ever bought a Series S that I know has said Game Pass machine to me. A friend of mine bought his first ever Xbox a couple of years ago. Well, it must have been last year, which was the Series S, which I think he got on a Black Friday deal last year. Probably kicking himself that he, didn't wait for this one. But yeah, he's just sort of been picking out various games on Game Pass over the last year, and it's not been something he's stuck to or played a lot of. He's very much stuck to his PlayStation 5. But for 180, you can kind of dip in and out, I think. You know, you're not
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
committed to, I must play this and get my worth out of it, because you'll get that over the course of a year, let's say.
Well, yeah, I mean, a PlayStation 5 is what, 400 quid for the cheap model
Or
in the
50, yeah, I
UK?
think, yeah.
That's for the disc one.
Oh, sorry,
Disc
right.
one's 479 now.
Is it? Okay, then
Yeah.
yeah, it must be, because it's about 80, 90 quid off, I think, which I don't know how much a hard drive, how much
Yeah, how
a
much does a
disc
disc drive
drive
really
costs, but
cost? It doesn't cost that much.
yeah.
I'm interested to see, because have you seen the rumor about the PS5 that's coming out next year, the modular one, where the base is always going to be a digital edition and you can buy
Oh, and you
a
get.
disc drive to go on? How much are they going to charge for that?
I honestly think that should have been the way to do it
Yeah,
originally, but I
definitely should have been.
guess it's also one of those things that's maybe harder to, with a launch, you don't want a Wii U situation where people go, oh, so you just buy the console then, and then they buy a bunch of discs and they're like, well, I don't have the disc drive. What we don't want to do is have a launch where the disc drive isn't available, and you have people that have bought a bunch of disc games like I did in the lead up. I bought all my games before I got the console. If I'd found out the disc drive wasn't in stock, which it likely wasn't have been, you couldn't even get a stupid controller charger for the first couple of months. Yeah, that would have been pretty annoying, I think.
Yeah, plus, I mean, the digital one's what they wanted it to be, right? It's the one that looks right. It looks a much nicer console.
I
I'm
don't think I've ever
interested to
seen
see
one in
how that
person.
goes. Yeah, I've never seen one in person either, because everyone I know bought the one with the disc because
Yeah.
the PlayStation store is ridiculous. If you want to go buy Spider-Man remastered on the PlayStation, it's 70 quid, same as God of War. But how much did you buy God of War for a launch? I bet it was like 50 quid or something.
No, I paid £62. I went to Curry's and I bought it full
Still,
price, which
that's
was sad.
£8 cheaper than it would have
Yeah,
been digitally.
yeah. The thing with Spider-Man as well is it's weird that you could buy, Miles Morales on the PS5. It might not be in all the editions, but you could probably get that now for about 30 quid, and it comes with Spider-Man. I don't know if it still will, or if you have to buy it second hand. But
You have to buy the digital the deluxe edition of Miles Morales.
oh, okay, right, okay,
Ended up getting Miles Morales second hand for like 15 quid from CEX, and then
okay.
you pay, I think it's £10 for the upgrade for Spider-Man
Oh, that's not
Remastered
too
or
bad
something,
then.
or
Yeah,
maybe
that's
15
yeah.
quid. But that's the only way you can buy that game. You can't
Yeah,
buy
it's
it
crazy.
separately. It's so stupid.
Yep. 70. I mean, yeah, £70 is ridiculous. I was thinking about this the other day. Just how. I mean, to be fair, this probably ties in nicely to the next topic. So I'll wait off for that maybe with in terms of game prices. But
Well, before we get to that, then let's quickly do some plugs. This week's episode is, of course, brought to you by our Patreon producers for November. They are Christian Oliveria. Sorry, Christian, I'm going to start that again. They are Christian Oliveria, Christopher Valens, Gabriel Hasselmeyer, aka Sobi, Mary Berry, Wakahula, and Zaid Eder. Thank you so much for your support. If you want to join them, you can head over to patreon.com/FlipScreenGames. We've got a bunch of tiers over there. You get a bunch of perks, including our weekly show, One More Thing, where me and Pete keep the mic rolling. We talk about what's going on in our lives that week. You get early access to every single one of our episodes and videos. And you obviously can get your name on the screen and read out on the podcast. So be sure to head over there and check that out. If you're in the holiday spirit after this episode and you want more, be sure to check out our gift guide for the Steam Deck podcast this week. We spoke all about games that we recommend from the Steam sale, a lot of those games are also on sale on the PlayStation and on the Xbox in their Black Friday sale. So I would recommend you go check that out. And there's a bunch of accessories in there if people are looking for something to buy someone with a Steam Deck for Christmas.
Or yourself.
Or yourself, yeah. Are you picking anything up in the Steam sale?
I've already picked up. I was trying not to, and then I saw a few good deals. I picked up every Prince of Persia game for £7. I got Enslaved Journey to the West for under £3, and then I got Weird West. I saw Fanatical were doing a deal for £7, I think. So that was been in my library since it came out. My wish list since it came out, and it's only ever gone to about £15. So I was like, yeah, if that's cheaper than cheap, I'll buy that. So yeah, I don't think I'm going to pick up much more because I'm going to have to try and resist. But yeah,
it's tough. It's really tough. I'm thinking of getting Red Dead Redemption 2 because I got that on Xbox, never finished it, never got hardly anywhere with it. It was just too long. I don't want to play that game like looking at a TV for hours at a time.
Yeah.
But I know I'll play it on Steam Deck because I've had such a good time playing Horizon and A Days Gone on there.
This is what I've convinced myself with The Witcher 3. So maybe you should buy that, and in a few months' time we should discuss whether that did actually solve that for us.
Well, The Witcher 3's next gen update's coming out on December 14th, so maybe I'll check it out. In that they've added a bunch of new modes, like they've added ray tracing, global illumination. There's some new cameras, new controller support for the PS5 DualSense, stuff like that. I mean, everyone gets the update for free. There's like a new DLC based on the Netflix show as well. I'm not.
Yeah, I think it's just cosmetics. So I think it's just like armors and costumes that are based on that.
So I can look
which
like
I think even
Henry Cavill, or will I look like
you can
the other guy?
Yeah.
Liam.
No, not Liam Hemsworth. No, you look. I think you have the costume of Henry Cavill. There's also what was the wrinkly armor that people wear, and I haven't seen the series, but there's a wrinkly armor that everyone was upset about is now being put into the game, which is obviously going to upset more people.
I love that.
I think the people that are on Switch, PS3 and PS4 and Xbox One will still get that stuff. They just won't get all of the fancy new updates. But
yeah, the quote unquote next gen, which at some point we've got to stop calling it next gen and start calling it current gen. It's been 2 years. We're now in the third year of these consoles, and we're still calling them next gen, which is preposterous.
We just had conversations about the next consoles because of a bunch of stuff that's been going on.
Yeah, exactly. Like, there's potentially a new PS5 SKU coming next year. That doesn't happen like early in the next generation. Yeah,
and then they go ahead and say, "Oh, there's not going to be another new PlayStation until 2027 or 2028 or whatever." And it's like, that seems a bit close for my liking. This generation for me has barely even started because of their own messaging and their own releases and how they've been, obviously it's hard to get a jump start with nothing to sell, but for the people that have got it
seems about right to me though. I mean, 7-year generation. If you think about PS4 came out 2013, 2 years in was 2015. We started seeing the end of the cross-gen then, and started seeing the fruits of the labor.
You had Bloodborne by then, mate. You had Bloodborne by then.
I
You
mean,
had a reason to buy a PS4
Souls
then.
in like the first, there was like one of the launch titles.
Yeah, but that's not a new game, is it? It was a remake.
Not new, yeah, I know it's a remake, but it's like a phenomenal remake.
Oh yeah, it was good. That's the gold standard.
Like, if Elden Ring looked that good, I think a lot of people would have been very happy.
Oh, dearie me. Can you imagine?
Is that the one I should check out next? Like, I was thinking of getting Sekiro as well, because that's 50% off on Steam.
Sekiro, absolutely. 100%. Stop the conversation now. Sekiro is the best From Software game, and I think it's probably one that you might gel with more than you would Demon's Souls. Demon's Souls feels like a PS3 game in terms of like its structure. Dark Souls is what put them in the right direction. I think I enjoyed Demon's Souls. It looked amazing, and it very much felt in the combat Soulsy, but then the progression and the fact that there's like different worlds that you dip in and out of, and it was a bit more vague. And yeah, I think if you're looking for something that it feels more modern, I would say go for Sekiro. I'm sure people are going to be commenting or saying I'm wrong here, but for me, Sekiro.
You know what though? Like, that's the whole point of the show, is to just like voice your opinion. It's 25 quid, and I looked at it, and a lot of people have told me that that Sekiro is the one to go for. Sierra from the
It's
community, I
also
think she told me as well that Sekiro is one of her favorites.
it's also as cheap as it gets. So I think I waited a year and a bit, and I picked it up at 30, and then a couple of years later, I was like, oh, I might rebuy it on PS5, and then I saw it was £30 again, and I was like, well, that's as cheap as it gets, so I bought it. So if it's 25, then hop on
Yeah,
it.
see,
Probably even
Pete
get
thought
it
the
secondhand
same.
for that.
People thought the same about Red Dead Redemption 2, and that 50% off is going to be as cheap as it gets, and now it's 67% off. So I'll no doubt buy it now, and then at Christmas in the winter sale, it'll probably be 67% off. But I'm fine with that.
Well, think about who currently owns Sekiro, and then we'll see.
Who
It's
does own
Activision.
Sekiro?
Activision.
Is it really Activision?
Yeah.
Okay, well that's a great segue into the Xbox deal potentially in jeopardy. Once again, it feels like this deal's always in the conversation. We had the response from PlayStation and Xbox to the CMA about it's basically the appeal is part of the ongoing investigation that the CMA in the UK, which is the Competition and Markets Authority, is looking into, which I'm sure you'll have heard about. We've spoken about it till we're blue in the face on this podcast. But also yesterday, the rumor from Politico that the FTC is likely going to challenge the takeover themselves with an antitrust lawsuit against Microsoft. They quote 3 independent sources, and it will be the biggest lawsuit the FTC has ever brought against a private company. So, what do you think, Max? Do you think this is going to go through at this point? Like, what at face value with both the UK, the EU's now starting to look into it, and possibly America themselves looking into it?
I think there's a lot of red tape popping up everywhere, and I think it should be dealt with more behind closed doors. I think we're seeing too much. It feels almost like mudslinging. It's like 2 school children going, nah, well, they do this and I do that. And I know they have to say these things to fight their corner, but some of the stuff that's been coming out over the last couple of days doesn't make either of them look very good. Sony's obviously quite desperate. Microsoft wants it to happen. I think that the fact that these big corporations these big regulators are having to step in and have these, like you said, there's a big giant lawsuit coming that, yeah, I don't think it's going to happen at this point. I think we're going to see we're going to learn a lot, I think, about Microsoft and even about Sony in some ways, and about Activision maybe. Not that there's anything more we need to want to know about them, but yeah, I think we're going to see too many roadblocks for this to go through.
I mean, I am inclined to agree with you. The problem is, I think, that both sides have a lot to gain. Activision's shares are trading at $73 now. The Microsoft deal is for $95 a share. So there's a big payday for Activision's shareholders if this goes through. And I think there's even a condition in the contract that Activision has to pay. I think it was something ridiculous, like $1 billion, if the deal does not go through. So
Jeez.
they've both sides have to be pretty confident that the deal is going to go through, and they obviously were. The FTC, though, has completely changed since Biden's administration took over. Trump was very hands-off and just like, oh, yeah, kind of do what you want. You're big business. You just, as long as you bring money in, I don't really care. Biden's like regulating again, which is what a government's meant to do. And I know that a lot of people want this deal to go through. I just worry that it's not necessarily the best thing for the gaming community as a whole.
Yeah.
The thing that's annoying me most, though, is that the CMA are so hung up on Call of Duty, and I just do not understand why. Like, it is just such a huge thing that, like, PlayStation is seemingly using it as their, like, smoking gun. Like, oh, we can't do it, and, this, that, and the other. But you found some kind of choice quotes from both sides. So why don't you walk us through what's been going on with both of the mudslinging this week?
So this is mostly from last couple of days, really. That sort of there's been Xbox says this, Microsoft says this. Essentially, Sony are trying to say that with Activision, Microsoft will become too powerful, right? That with Call of Duty, without giving Sony access to Call of Duty, they'll become too powerful. And they even used one of the first quotes is that Microsoft is trying to turn Sony into Nintendo by taking away all of the sort of top-selling shooters, Halo, then Call of Duty, Gears of War, and stuff like that, and trying to take away sort of the one thing that Sony also has that they can take away, which then Microsoft has then come back and said, like PlayStation games are better and more iconic, and that Sony aren't the little guy here. They're as big as Activision by themselves, They've got
I think
things
they
like
said they were higher quality, right? Of higher quality.
Yes, that's it. Yes, yeah. And Microsoft has also said that PlayStation has The Last of Us, God of War, and stuff like that, but they also have things like Bloodborne, Final Fantasy VII Remaster. So why are we not allowed to have, Call of Duty?
Which is a
like
really good argument,
really...
right? And I get that Call of Duty is like one of the biggest franchises, and it's obviously one of the biggest sellers over on the PlayStation side of things. But Phil Spencer was on the podcast of The Verge's podcast with Nilay Patel. I recommend everyone goes and listens to that. And he categorically and emphatically said they can have Call of Duty as long as they want. We don't care. That's not why we're buying Activision. They really it seemed to be that they really wanted to get into the mobile space, and this was like a huge way for them to get into the mobile space. From what Phil was saying,
they jokingly said, I don't know if it was a joke or if it was whether it was taken out of context or whatever, but I saw that someone had said, "Oh, we're not buying it for Call of Duty. We're buying it for Candy Crush." We want that level of stuff. But yeah.
Well, I mean, the documents that's been going around from the CMA has been crazy. Microsoft has rightly said that Nintendo is the largest publisher globally, and it's like, would that be that bad of a thing if Sony became the largest publisher globally? No, but Sony doesn't want to be seen as family friendly. But did you then see that Microsoft's response? They showed a picture of Bayonetta 3. Where she's just like wearing hardly anything, and it's just like, is this really family friendly? I don't think it is.
I saw. Microsoft have also come out and said that they feel like Nintendo have a more wide range of sort of adult-oriented or 18+ mature content than Microsoft does itself. Microsoft as a publisher and as their own selection of games, Nintendo can offer more, I think they've said. I need to get the exact quote.
Yeah, so it's a broader range of mature content than Xbox. And Microsoft has said that the CMA has mischaracterized the Nintendo Switch as being predominantly for families. And so such a characterization neglects the fact that more mature and adult games are available on the Switch and are actively marketed. Including on the Switch's YouTube channel, these games include Apex Legends, The Witcher 3, Doom Eternal, Wolfenstein 2, The New Colossus, Cult of the Lamb, Nier Automata, Alan Wake Remastered, Crysis Remastered, Outlast, Little Nightmares, Five Nights at Freddy's, and Life is Strange. And they're right, all of those games are there, but they're also all on Xbox, so I don't really understand. I don't understand that how is a broader range of content than Xbox.
I guess you just chuck in Bayonetta 3 there, and then you've got a broader range. It's interesting that Sony were sort of coming out and saying that Microsoft doesn't count Nintendo as almost like a competitor. It doesn't track Nintendo; it only tracks Sony, and that what Microsoft are trying to do is get that way ahead of Sony, so that even Sony aren't a competitor to them. But they've clearly got all this data about Nintendo. They're clearly paying attention. So it's odd that Sony's that argument is, they don't care about Nintendo, they only care about us. Clearly they don't. Yeah,
I mean, and this whole thing, right? The whole CMA honing in on Call of Duty is a big part of the response as well. PlayStation, they even talk about the fact that most gamers on consoles do not play Call of Duty, and they have data which has been redacted. They say Xbox gamer data shows that X% of gamers did not play Call of Duty for even more than 1 hour in 2021, and X% did not play for more than 5 hours. So I would imagine that's probably a pretty low percentage, and that Call of Duty does not drive platform adoption. And that's where it comes in with the high quality Sony games. That Call of Duty is not the reason you're buying any of these consoles, because it's cross-platform and it's going to remain to be cross-platform. They've got the contracts in place to say that. The reason people buy these consoles, they buy a PS5 because they want to play God of War, Horizon, The Last of Us, Uncharted, and they buy an Xbox because of Game Pass, and that's like the main reason, right? And the
Yeah.
CMA is obviously worried about Game Pass, and that's like a big thing. But Microsoft is saying that they have like a bunch of their games over on PlayStation Plus, which is true. They do. They've got a lot of Bethesda titles on PlayStation Plus, and they're going to continue to do that. And I mean, I believe them. I believe that Call of Duty remains open and stays because it's such a big multiplayer title. I guess a big point that Sony could make is that, well, they're going to put them day and date on Game Pass, so that's going to be a loss of sale for us, because why would you spend $70 to buy it on our platform when you could just go and play it for quote-unquote free on Game Pass?
Yeah, and I think, like you say, like Game Pass is going to be the big driver behind where people choose to do, and Sony's obviously scared of that. And I guess this is where I think it might not happen, because that's such a big argument, and there's already also what you're trying to do here is you're trying to convince a bunch of people who aren't maybe as entrenched in the industry and aren't from the industry to make this decision based on their arguments. It's not like they're obviously going to be doing their own independent stuff, but it's not like this isn't going to be as much about Microsoft and Sony's arguments as it is about thorough research, which is why I don't think, like you say, Microsoft probably are telling the truth. They're probably being very forthcoming about these things, and they probably are saying, look, Sony, you can have this stuff. We're not taking it away from you. But I think Sony coming in and saying the things that they've been saying, and they're trying to do this to us, they're not looking at Nintendo and all this stuff, I think is going to harm Microsoft's stance here a bit.
Yeah, I don't know where this goes, and obviously the FTC are going to have their own investigation if that a rumor is true, which I kind of believe it is. There is potentially more and more hot water for them. They do make a very good point, though, that even after the acquisition of Activision, that gives them 10 to 20% share of the market, whereas Sony continues to have 40 to 50%, and Nintendo would then continue to have 30 to 40%. It won't make any impact on Nintendo at all, because they don't really see Nintendo as their competition, I guess. And they're also still publishing games on Nintendo platforms. Microsoft have continued to do that. I don't know. I don't know where this goes. It's going to be interesting to see. It's an interesting one to follow. We'll follow up in probably next week or in a few weeks' time when we hear more, and we hear more of Sony's response and Microsoft's response.
I do think this story is going to be the one that sets the precedent, because all of last year on this very show, whether it was FlipScreen Games, and I can't remember, but you guys were talking about acquisitions. You were acquisitions were a hot topic. You had acquisitions in your yearly checklist, things that we're going to have. Max, there we go, predictions.
I predicted this year that Bungie would get acquired by Microsoft.
Was it this year? Was it really this year?
This year, but this year Sony acquired Bungie.
Yes,
and I was very upset about that. Very, very upset. I should have been less specific. It was my risky pick. I should have just said Bungie is acquired.
I wonder if this is the story that maybe puts an end to the acquisition race as we see it. Maybe flying too close to the sun and trying to buy something as large as Activision for as much money as Activision cost might sort of make it collapse in on itself. We shall see.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what happens to Activision if this doesn't go through, because their shares would be way down. At the moment, they're just the Call of Duty company. They've got all of this IP that they're not really capitalizing on. Blizzard hasn't really had a great launch of Overwatch 2, so I don't know how if that's really going to go anywhere. They're in a lot of trouble if this deal doesn't go through.
They could just start selling up, and then Sony will swoop in and pick up the pieces. Maybe, who knows?
Yeah, they could, or maybe someone like Embracer comes in. There's a quiet giant like Embracer just waiting to snap all this stuff up. They just bought all of the studios off of Square Enix, for example. They own a lot of IP at this point. Yeah, they bought another IP this week, wasn't it? Risk of Rain. They ended up snapping that one up.
Yes, they did. Yeah.
So it's like all of this IP that Embracer's slowly swallowing up. Not to mention stuff outside of the video game space, like they own Dark Horse Comics. They own Asmodee, the board game publisher. They own a lot of stuff and a lot of IP, and they've got fingers in a lot of pies, and they want to keep growing that as much as they can. So I think someone's going to end up bailing Activision out. And worst case scenario, though, like Bobby Kotick's out of a job, and I will not be very upset. Like, I'll be quite happy to see him go.
Maybe some of these companies get to be more independent again if they split up and are bought by, piecemeal. Maybe Blizzard isn't owned by Activision anymore. Blizzard's owned by someone else who wants them to.
Well, it'd be nice if Blizzard was owned by Blizzard, like Bungie style. Let's spin out. Let's go independent again. Let's become a private company again. Let's get funding and let's make our games that we want to make and make them quality rather than, our studio assisting in places that we don't want it to. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. Before we jump on to what we're playing this week, I know you wanted to touch on some impressive game launches this week with God of War. And then we'll briefly touch on Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, just like eclipsing and stealing Sony's lunch mere days after that.
Yeah, can't catch a break, can they, Sony? Yeah, so God of War, that it was announced in the first week, it sold 5.1 million copies. That's what I've written down. That's probably correct. Breaking PlayStation's previous record holder, which was, as the fastest selling PlayStation game, which was Last of Us Part 2. So it's obviously been a smash hit success. $70 isn't too much for people to pay, it seems.
Well, I want to know the split. How many of these were on PS4?
Yeah, that'd be interesting. Or how many people bought it on PS4 just to upgrade it for a tenner? Maybe they found it cheaper elsewhere. Who knows? But yes, I mean it's good that it goes to show. Now, I am setting something up here. It's good to know that a good quality complete game. As we know, there's going to be no DLC. The director came out and said this week. No plans for DLC, although it's not likely there'll be DLC. It's good to know that good quality games sell well. That's the only indicator for how well a game sells is good quality, good performance, and strong development. Yeah. On to Pokemon. Pokemon then announced in the same day, Nintendo announced that in just 3 days, so that's not a week, that's 3 days, Pokemon sold 10 million copies, making that the fastest selling Pokemon game, the fastest selling Switch game, the fastest selling Nintendo game. I think in Japan it sold 96% more than the rest of the chart combined last week, I believe, or something like that. It's insane, for want of a better word. So it's a good week for record breaking, I guess. I feel like every year around this time we get the record breaking announcements. I think every game that comes out so far, there's been like Elden Ring's the fastest selling game of the year, this, that, or the other. But this really is impressive for the two non-Xbox publishers, I guess, the big ones.
Yeah, well, apparently Nintendo's the biggest publisher on the planet, according to Microsoft. So
yeah,
it's to be expected, right?
Yeah, well, absolutely. What does God of War's big old sales not want to draw you in at all?
No, I'd have to play the first one, and I don't know, something about it it's not my style. It's fantasy.
Yeah,
it takes a lot for me to be drawn into fantasy.
What's your game of the year? Sorry, Steve.
I'm not there I was about to say this. I'm not in Elden Ring for the story. I'm there because the combat is so fucking satisfying and the loop is insane. I just think it's addictive. You can't stop playing. Same reason I'm playing Vampire Survivors day in, day out still. And how are they still adding more content to that game? Like, seriously.
Yeah, that's something I should have included today. I thought similar to Hades, 1.0 would be it, right?
No,
I thought we'll play this for a while. Here we are, 1.10.
We had another character just ready to go. So I think that bodes well for the future of Vampire Survivors.
I think so. Just when I sort of touch 110 achievements, so I'm like, yeah, cool. At some point over Christmas, I'll tot up the last 30. All of a sudden, I've got to then be catch up.
I'm at like 136 of 142 or something.
And it's left.
Driving me mental getting that stupid skeleton ball. I can't figure it out. It's driving me crazy.
Skeleton ball?
Yeah, it's a big Katamari.
Oh, and it grows?
Yes.
Oh, mate, you've just got to hit it. You've just got to hit it over and over again. I did it. You've just got to get in its face. Maybe not in its face. You've just got to stand just enough away.
Did you do it pre 1.0?
No, I started playing the game 1.0.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say pre 1.0, you could do it easily. Apparently, I've watched videos.
What
And
are you
you just...
trying to? Well, why? Why would you not believe that I could do it in the harder?
No,
Come
because like there's whole threads online of like, is this game broken? Does this can you even beat this bone Katamari?
You know how I did it? I had the pinion, which I had like not evolved, but like fully upgraded. I had the knives, and I had what was it? It was the one of the. It was the whip, the upgraded whip. And you literally just do a circle and then point towards the thing, and all the pinions go ting, and you just keep
All right,
circling,
I'll
looping.
try
Do you know
that.
what? I killed it while I was being chased by one of the followers from the silver ring. I got the silver ring, and the follower was chasing me, and I was still able to kill it with that pinion thing. So...
All right, well, I'll try that. I have been playing with the fastest character in the game, a secret character, so I won't ruin it for anyone, and it's been impossible even with that. So like, I'll try
Either
again.
start with the pinion or go for Gennaro, who is always my go-to, because you get the +1 to all +1 to all things. Now the good thing about him is that the big ball is that it does absorb enemies. So if while you're there, you know, it might grow, but you also, I don't think its health grows at all. I think it just
Right,
grows.
okay, because this is what I couldn't figure out. Is the health growing as it's going?
I don't think the health grows.
I'll talk to you off mic about it, and I'll see if I can figure out some kind of strategy. But yeah, I'm still having a great time with Vampire Survivors. There's a couple of things to talk about with these game launches. God of War, how many more do you think it would have sold if it had launched on PC at the same time?
Oh, loads more. The fact that God of War, let me just quickly get the numbers, because I'm pretty sure.
I'm at a point where it's just like, when does Sony just say, fuck it, we want $70 day and day with all of these games, and we're just going to put them on PC? Because it's got to be ready for PC at this point, because it's basically the PC version of God of War that's running on the PS5.
Yeah, I do think that they still want to sell consoles because they want people buying on that ecosystem. Maybe
they
I know
losing
that they don't
money on those things. Like, what's the point?
But I then think that you then get people at launch with the new game. You also get people double dipping. You get people that buy the PlayStation 5 to play Ragnarok. They also go, okay, I'll get the second Horizon because I've played the first one on PC and I enjoyed that. Maybe then down the line, Horizon and God of War come to PC and they go, well, I've got to have FSR, or I've got to play it in this way. I've got to turn on ray tracing and all this stuff.
I just
and all of a
spent
sudden,
$1.5 grand on a 4090. I need to see what this looks like at max.
Yeah.
How many frames can I get? 240? Yes, please. Yeah. And the other thing is is what we'll talk about over on Nintendo Noise next week, which is how the fuck does Nintendo get away with this all the time with Pokemon? Like, there's always like something missing from a Pokemon game, and yet somehow it still sells like hotcakes. And I don't understand it. I don't get Pokemon in general, and this game just looks like a crummy mess. And you can listen to Pete, Chewy, and Sierra's take on it over on Nintendo Noise this week. I wasn't on it, but if you want to hear more about Pokemon, go and listen to that episode.
Yes. Quickly to touch on your thing of the God of War sales. So when God of War launched in February of 2022, by March it had sold nearly 1 million copies. And so that was a total of, in March 2022, it was a total of 20 million copies. By November, it's 23 million copies. So since it launched on PC, it sold a further 4 million copies. How much of that, I wonder, is purely PC?
A lot of it, I would imagine.
Who knows?
Yeah. I mean, probably at that point, you probably could have doubled that number. They probably would have hit the 10 million, I think.
Yeah, possibly. Well, possibly, because a lot of people, it's gone on sale a few times since the original launch on PC.
Yeah, but it's like it's a sequel. It's a follow-up to a game that people maybe played and weren't sure on. It's a hotly anticipated title.
Yeah, I think that to release God of War, the first one, this year, get the PC gamers who hadn't played it before hooked, and then immediately drop Ragnarok. Imagine that. Imagine playing a game for the first time, and then the sequel's in 3 months' time, and you're like, oh, here we go.
I mean, that's basically Pokemon, wasn't it? You played Arceus, and then Fucking
the
6
less.
months
I
time.
think I do think the less said about Pokemon, the better. Just because I've got nothing good to say about it. They stole my designs. I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty adamant they
I
stole my
saw
designs.
that, yeah.
Right as too unguessed, too close to my liking. They, like I said, I'm not going to get onto it, but yeah, I feel like as a not a fan of PlayStation, but a fan of God of War, and knowing how high quality that game is, sure, it's £70 or it's £62. It's quite expensive, but the amount of effort and love that's gone into that, and the amount of the sheer amount of like polishing and how everything works together and how much content there is in that game for Pokemon to come out in the state that it's come out in, clearly much less effort's gone into
It's not
almost
finished.
every capacity of it. Yeah, it's not finished. Even the stuff that is there, it's like I say this every time a Pokemon game comes out. I'm pretty sure when Arceus came out, I was like, "How is Arceus or Arceus, whatever, the same price as Elden Ring? Like,
It's
look at
Arceus. I know Pete says
Arceus.
Arceus, but it's not an arse phone in that game, is it? It's the Arc phone.
No, could be the arse phone.
Yeah, I don't want the arse phone. I want the Arc phone.
That's what when you get a phone call off me, and you're like, oh, he's walking down the
Sorry,
street.
I've
Oh, he's arse
arse-styled
phoned
you.
me. Yeah. Yeah. I just think it's crazy that Pokemon gets the free pass that it seems to get. Obviously, quality. I was joking earlier when I said that quality equals sales, because we've obviously seen some titles that are more niche, like Persona 5. Persona 5, is that what we're on? 5?
We're on Persona 5, but I also
the
think
one?
a better thing is there's one that you've mentioned here, which is Cyberpunk. But they did like a
Yeah.
rug pull where it's just like, look how shiny and polished this game is. It looks great.
Mhm.
And no reviews. No one really knows what it looks like until the last minute when you've already got your purchase in. And then, bam, the game doesn't run like anything on PS4 or
I feel
Xbox
like that
One.
was more. There was a mixture of it being more shady and less shady there. More shady in that they obviously put a lot of effort into getting the PC version working for launch, gave all the reviewers the PC version, didn't touch on last gen at all. That's the shady bit. However, they did give the reviewers a version of how the game could run. So there was like it's shady, but
Yeah.
also at least they were saying, giving an idea of what it is. Pokemon has just launched in this state, and
but they weren't shady about it. They showed the reviewers that they sent the version of the game out that they were shipping, and the reviewers all came out saying it's a fun game. It's probably the best Pokemon game in terms of gameplay, but the quality of it sucks.
Mm-hmm. I just expect more from this Nintendo. I know you jokingly posted the seal of quality thing, and I think it's unfair that the Switch is getting the brunt of the conversation here.
Yeah, that
sometimes.
really annoys me, because you look at Xenoblade that came out this year, and it's just like, look at what they were able to eke out. I even think, look at Breath of the Wild, a launch game. It's so much nicer. Yeah, it's like 5 years old.
Did launch with issues.
It launched with issues, but people weren't falling through the floor. They weren't repeating ugly textures due to like an absolute causing an absolute blurry mess. It's like, like the popping's like insane. The frame rate issues on individual characters, like that classroom scene that everyone keeps sharing. It's like everyone's running at like 2 frames per second.
Yeah, there's even the like all of the textures on like things that are like art on walls is just like the lowest quality JPEG stretched as big as it goes. I don't know. It's just. I said I wasn't going to. Look, all I've done is shit on it.
Well, let's talk about good Pokemon then, because I know you've been playing Pokemon Black this week.
I have been playing Pokemon Black this week. Did I write that down, or if you just? I have. Yeah.
You wrote that down. I'm not that smart.
Yeah, I was going to say, have you been paying attention?
I did see. I did see that you mentioned you were playing through it though, because who was it? Was it Imran Khan that posted that? Remember how when they used to look good, and you replied?
Yes, because luckily I'd just been sort of going through it. So I got the Platinum of God of War last. So it was just after I finished with Sightless Combat and Pete. I was itching to finish the conversation and go. Not that the conversation wasn't interesting, but I was like, I'm literally about to do the final boss. Like
that's like one of the best like feelings in a game. Like when you can't stop thinking about it, no matter what you're doing. It's great.
Luckily, I was able to talk about it and listen about it for that hour that I wasn't playing it. But I got the Platinum and I was like, that is another one of those games similar to Elden Ring where I'm like, what's going to top this? And I've sort of divvied about for a bit. I've sort of loading things on my Steam Deck. I'm been in the Steam sale. I've downloaded a few things. I've gone in and out of a few things, and Nothing's really grabbed my attention so far, but I have settled on Pokemon Black because I've been getting Pokemon fever from this conversation. But every time I'm like, well, and I then look at Pokemon again, I'm like, no, that's silly. So I thought, why don't I play a Pokemon game that I've not played before, that I know is highly regarded, in an era that I remember really loving Pokemon. So I loaded up Pokemon Black on the Steam Deck, and yeah, it's good. And that's what, there's just so much personality in that game that you don't get in the more modern Pokemon games. It's bizarre that as the processing power has got higher and the fact that there was 3D models, and you should be able to get so much more personality out of them, that they're somehow more wooden.
Yeah.
Even a cutscene. There was a cutscene where a character comes out and gives a speech, and I was like, "Oh, I'm into this." And there was you do a battle with Purloin specifically as a Pokemon that in the black and white, it's like a cat, and it sits there. And it looks really sassy, and it sort of like moves a little bit, and it has a little movement to it.
It's good. It's good art style. They like nailed that like 2D generation, and that's what Pokemon was. And the jump over to 3D, I just don't think has worked as well as it should have. You look at something like Ni no Kuni from the PS3 era.
Yeah,
how good that looks. Like that's the level of style and detail that I feel a Pokemon game should have, considering it's like their prime franchise, like the most popular media franchise in history. That is what a Pokemon game should be aiming for.
That is a comparison that Bob Wolf made earlier today. That Ni no Kuni, look at that game, even on Switch specifically. It's a very similar game to Pokemon, except it's more involved, if anything, in terms of combat. And they take a simple art style, but they give it personality.
Yeah, I remember playing that after your review over on Loot Pots, and I was like blown away with it. It was like, this feels like I'm playing a Studio Ghibli movie. Like it really does, and like they were able to accomplish that in the PS3 generation, and we can't do that on the Switch. Like I get that the Switch is not in line with power on the anywhere near like what the PS4 could do, but that was a PS3 game.
I have just sent to you in the secret way that we talk a picture of Purloin, the character I mentioned a minute ago, in black and white, right? That's animated, so there's sort of a little bit of movement to it. The tail moves, and it blinks, and it moves its hand and stuff. Then I've just sent you, when they moved to 3D and they redid all the Pokemon in 3D, they just took out all of the personality, and now it just stands there. And that's one example I can think of. There's so many Pokemon that in the old games, in the 2D art style, whether that was on in Diamond and Pearl or Black and White, Heart Gold, Soul Silver, specifically that generation, because I think that's when they peaked in terms of the 2D art. The Pokemon are sort of they're moving, they're dynamic, they look like they're, even the ones that are still in Diamond and Pearl, they look dynamic. And now you find a Pokemon, and even some of the core, like Cyndaquil, isn't on fire until he attacks in the 3D games. So he's standing there. Same with Typhlosion and Quilava. They sit there without any fire on them, which is their main features. They're covered in fire, and they've just whipped it away for the 3D stuff. And I don't understand it. But yeah, I'm enjoying Black and White. It's a generation I've not played before. Pokemon that I know from Pokemon Go, but have never seen in their native habitat. So yes, I have been enjoying that one.
Nice. And you also playing some Donkey Kong Country Returns as well?
Oh, yes. I'm massive fan of Tropical Freeze. I 100%ed it on Wii U, 100%ed it on Switch. Never got around to playing Returns on the Wii or the 3DS. Just because I think by the time I decided I wanted to, by the time I was into Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze, I wasn't really playing my 3DS very much. Didn't want to drag out the Wii. So I decided to play it on Steam Deck, and without the motion controls and running at 60 FPS with the updated, just the upscaled visuals, it looks fantastic. I'm blown away by how when you upscale a GameCube or a Wii game, and then you compare it to an upscale PS3 game, God of War or Dante's Inferno, I don't know, something like that, how these games just have so much personality and character in them. And I know that there's a difference between going for a more stylized art style like Wind Waker versus.
But I feel like it was the PS3 was and the Xbox 360 was all about, we want to go for that realism, but it never quite reached it. And now that we've kind of eclipsed that and surpassed it on both the PS4 and the PS5 now. It just looks like crap. You can't upscale that. Whereas you take something that's stylistic and looks like a cartoon, and you can make it look like a Pixar movie.
Yeah. And now I'm playing Donkey Kong, and I'm looking at all of these, environments and the design and stuff, and going, yeah, great. This looks fantastic. Still, it still holds up completely. So yeah, I'm really enjoying it. It does feel exactly like, not in a derogatory way, it feels exactly like Tropical Freeze, in that Retro Studios came in and nailed it first try. They hadn't really done much 2D stuff before. Obviously, they're very close to my heart with making Metroid Prime. They did Mario Kart 7, I believe, on the 3DS. But I feel like, yeah, they absolutely nailed. They've taken what made Metroid Prime great was how a lot of the platforms and the environments and stuff felt natural. You jump on, it wasn't just like a floating block for no reason. And Donkey Kong really embodies that as well, where everything seems to have a purpose. And yeah, I think it's a very good game. And if you haven't played it, I'd recommend playing the Wii version, not the 3DS version, because it runs at double the frame rate. So there we go.
Yeah, that sounds like the way to go.
Steve, I feel like I'm going to give you an opportunity to talk about something that isn't God of War, because the last time we spoke about the games we were playing, you had to silently sit there and listen to us.
Thank you, Max. Yeah, but before I do, I want to ask: did you use Steam ROM Manager to add it to your library?
What, Donkey Kong?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was it one of the ones hit by the Nintendo DMCA's this week?
Oh, so I've actually got it. So I've had that for a little while. But I did add the 3DS version yesterday, and it still got pulled in automatically. So whether it's not pulling directly from there,
you'll know if it does. It comes up with. I'm showing it on the screen now for the YouTube viewers, and it says this asset has been removed in response to a DMCA takedown notice, and they've just replaced the image with a black background and a pink writing on it. I'll paste it over to you, Max, so you can
please
take a look and see what it does.
Luckily, I mean, I updated Steam ROM Manager. Oh wow, yeah, look at that. I updated my Steam ROM Manager yesterday. I updated the list when I added Donkey Kong 3D, and so far nothing has come off of it yet. God, I really don't want to have to go for a manually add all of those. I will because I'm annoying like that. I bought every Prince of Persia game, and it didn't have the portrait artwork, so the first thing I did was go in and download the portrait artwork for all 7 games, even though I'm not even going to play them all in one go. Anyway, talk about some games.
I have been playing 2 games, Signalis and Pentiment this week, alongside Persona 5 Royal, which you can hear about on our Game Club, which comes out next Wednesday, so go listen to that if you're interested in that, and Vampire Survivors, which we spoke about. Do you know either of these games, Signalis or Pentiment?
I know more about Pentiment, but I'm aware of both of them, yes.
Okay, so I'll start with Pentiment then. Pentiment is the new game from Obsidian. It's exclusive to Xbox and PC. I've been playing it on Game Pass, both on Xbox and also streaming to my Steam Deck. And I'm having a really good time with it. I didn't think I would, because it's a very different game than I'm used to from Obsidian. It's this 2D, hand-drawn, looks like you're walking in a watercolor. It's really, really pretty game. Set in a historical land.
Yeah, it's all sort of based on the old medieval like books, the art style that you see in books or on tapestries and things like that, right? Yeah.
And you play one of the guys that works in a scriptorium who makes those books, and they're like on their way out because printers have been invented, and he's just like trying to finish his masterpiece, is what he calls it, and it's his final like thing he's going to do before he kind of moves on. And he spent years studying, but you get to like play a character. It's a full role play game. So like my character went to university, studied law. When he wasn't studying, he spent all of his time enjoying all the vices, which means I get additional dialogue choices to flirt with nuns and like talk about alcohol and things like that, which is really fun. And like I can say stuff to the priest like, oh, I don't want to come to church on Sundays. Like, what's the point? That kind of stuff. Like, there's a lot of fun things in there. It seems to be leading up to be a murder mystery, and I'm interested to see where it goes. I'm having a good time with it so far.
One. You love a
Yeah.
murder mystery game, don't you?
Yeah, well, I do, yeah. This one's a lot different to A Case of the Golden Idol, which I also recommended. So I think Signalis is probably going to end up on my Game of the Year list. It's a special game.
Yeah.
All of the choices you make have meaning and have matter. People remember what you say if you choose to
Sorry, this
help
is
them or
Pentiment or
not.
Signalis, sorry.
Pentiment, sorry, and
Sorry, right, okay.
all of the choices matter, and what you and you may end up needing to persuade them. There's a moment when you have to like collect books for the nuns, and one of the books is going to get destroyed, and it's getting destroyed because it has some like stuff that goes against the church. And you, as someone who writes books and makes books, you can choose that you don't want it to be destroyed, and you can try and convince the nun not to destroy and let you take it. I failed that persuasion because I was
How did
nasty to
you
her.
persuade? Is it sort of like something like Divinity or Weird West, where it's sort of like an immersive sim, and the background you've chosen for your character means you can tackle things in certain ways, and there's sort of like points assigned to things. Is it you say it's an
Pretty
RPG? Are there
much, yeah.
points assigned to
There is
levels?
points
Yeah.
assigned. Like you'll see arrows up and down. It's more based on the dialogue choices you've chosen. You get additional dialogue choices based on what you know. Like because I'd studied law, I got an additional dialogue choice when I spoke to that nun that wanted the books, and I could give her some law advice, and she was like, "Yeah, I don't really care. Like, stop showing off that you know law." And that gave me an arrow down. That she didn't like that. She didn't like the unsolicited law
Okay.
advice. And so it'll come up when you need to persuade them in a little window that says persuasion, and it'll tell you the pros and cons and like basically the probability that this persuasion's going to work. My persuasion didn't work because I was reluctant to help her in the first place, and then I also gave her the unsolicited law advice that she didn't appreciate, basically mansplaining to her. And you could even be like, you could even say stuff like, "Oh, it's not so hard being a woman. What are you on about?" Like, you can like be a real dickhead in this game, and it's really good fun. So, I feel like it's the kind of game that's right up Pete's alley. I think if you like stuff like Mass Effect, it's entirely dialogue based. There's no like combat or anything like that. So it's a really simple game. You just move around, and it's like a point and click. Works well on the Steam Deck. Works well on the Xbox. So those are your two places you can play, PC and Xbox, if you're interested in that one. You think you'd check it out?
Yeah, sounds good. I feel like the thing I like least about games like Mass Effect, and then also in games like Horizon Zero Dawn, is the dialogue choices and things like that. I am more of a combat-y, action-y guy and less of a ready, choosy person. So I feel like this kind of game, while the art style and the idea of it really appeals to me, I feel like there are games that embody that same idea that maybe aren't so much about talking to people. It'd be a shame to maybe it's something I'll try at some point. It just doesn't jump out to me.
Yeah, that's fair enough. It's kind of like a visual novel meets an RPG, and it's I'm enjoying it. I'm having a good time with it. It's a slow burner. I'm going to carry on playing it. I'm mainly playing it in bed before I go to sleep at night. The other game I've been playing is Signalis, and I've not been playing this in bed at night because it's fucking terrifying at times. This is a survival horror game where you play not a replicant. It's like a replicated or something, but basically you're a robot you're a clone of a human.
Android, yeah.
Yeah. And you're going to try and find this woman that's gone missing. Your spaceship had like crash landed and everyone's gone missing, and you go off and venture off onto this planet, and you end up at this like big building, big complex, and you venture into it, and you've got to go deep down. I've got to make my way down to it's like a mining shaft I've got to go down to try and find this woman.
Okay.
There's like some people have told me that she's down there. But there's like all of these other androids that have gone crazy and are like shooting me in the face and stuff, and like coming at me with knives and things. And it's like a really cool art style, really, really interesting. I'm having a great time with it. It feels the closest game I've played to an old school Resident Evil.
That's what I've heard about it. Yeah,
And like
it's sort
I
of,
love that because I really miss when Resident Evil was like survival horror, not shooter. And I feel like it lost its way for me with Resident Evil 4, and I know that's when it turned a big corner for a lot of people and became like a masterpiece series for them that they go back to every time. But for me, when it turned into a shooter, that's when I kind of fell off because I wanted the atmosphere.
we had this exact conversation, I think, in the October Halloween episode we did, and I am on the opposite. I think like everything about Signalis appeals to me, apart from all of the it's like old school Resident Evil, because I going back to Resident Evil 1 now after having played all of the other ones apart from 4, that I couldn't do it. I just found it too restricting, and I know that makes it more tense and that makes it harder and scarier. But yeah, I think I'd have to give Signalis I'd have to properly look at it. The art style, from what I've seen, looks amazing, and it does seem very cool. And I can see people saying that it's like one of their games of the year and stuff like that.
Do you have Game Pass?
No. Every time I buy it, I realise about a month later, like, oh, damn it, I didn't play anything. I've wasted £8.
I mean, that's fair, yeah. Like, for me, I think if you've got Game Pass, this one's like a must play. You should definitely check it out. Like, it's really creepy, really cool art style. I'm playing some footage on YouTube now, but go check out a trailer. I think there was a demo. Like, I played the Steam Next Fest demo for this game.
Oh, yeah, I did look through that and didn't see anything that jumped out to me. I wish I could go back in time and pick this one, but
yeah, but I'm actually playing this through the Humble Choice bundle thing, and it's weird. Like, they've got their own application, and you like basically install games through that.
We did say this.
And so I've installed that through Lutris on the Steam Deck, and it works fine. Works okay, but I would recommend just buying the game if you're interested, because it's a lot simpler.
Yeah, so there is a lot of, for everything the Steam Deck does well, every time someone's like, oh, you can get this game on Game Pass, I'm like, well, I'd rather play it on
You're like, I'd rather
play it on the Steam Deck,
and
I'd then have to have an Xbox to stream it to, or deal with the cloud, or yada yada.
Do you not have an Xbox?
Nah.
I heard a really great deal that's going on this weekend.
Oh, really? Can we have an hour's conversation about it?
Yeah, we did. Maybe we could check that out. But yeah, Signalis is another one of those I think will probably end up on my Game of the Year list, because I had such a good time playing it when I think it was a Soviet that pointed out to me during the Steam Next Fest earlier this year, and then it was like day and day I had to pick it up. I had to play it.
Having a lot of late in the year additions to your Game of the Year list here, aren't you? You know, you've had Vampire Survivors pop in at the end.
I've been playing Vampire Survivors since
Pentiment.
When have I been playing Vampire Survivors since? Like August?
Were you to jump on 1.0, or were you playing before?
No, I was playing it when it was early access. I was having a great time with that. I remember when it was the original music, when it was called The Beginning.
Yeah, this is what you get for not killing that skeleton ball, then, isn't it?
Yeah, really? I know it is. Yeah, this is my punishment. I never get to defeat that game. Oh yeah, see, at the moment the Game of the Year question, question is really heating up over here, and like I don't know what mine is at the moment, because I've got so many that are unfinished. I know which one it isn't. It's not Horizon Forbidden West, and it's not Stray, but I can't tell you which one it is. Because I'm not sure
I look forward to hashing that out with you at the end of the year.
Yes, yeah. So our Game of the Year is actually next year, which is when the Game Awards should be.
Oh.
Our Game of the Year is in January, so everyone gets a chance to play everything that came out in this year, and then we'll decide. But yeah,
the amount of the people, Steve.
Yeah, it'll be the first episode of 2023. But I think that's it for this week's show, unless you've got something else.
No, that is more than enough for me.
Well, thank you so much for joining me again this week, Max. And we'll be seeing a lot more of you around here. We'll say why in the coming weeks, I'm sure. But yeah, this has been a good one. I'm gonna go do some Black Friday shopping in a minute, because I'm paid now, so I can now go and spend all of my money on the Steam sale, which is a bad thing. Steam, thank you so much for putting a huge sale on just when everyone's
I'll send you a list of recommendations.
Yeah, please do. I need some games to pick up. But if you made it to the end of the episode, thank you so much for listening. Don't forget you can check out everywhere we are on the web, flipscreen.games. That's our website. You can even find us on Mastodon these days, and I think we're on Hive, which is the hot new thing that you should not be using.
Oh,
So like we're
yeah.
everywhere. We're just just look for us, FlipScreen Games. Search for us, and you will find us. But that's it from us, and we shall see you on the next one. Bye for now.
Bye bye.